Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Talk with Avra. It's all about perspective, and I'm Avra.
And my name is Yuko. And today we are here to share different perspectives of organization and planning, both in and out of the workplace.
So we also want you to take note that we do not give any medical advice or diagnosis. Our discussions are based on our own thoughts and points of view from our respective learning and our education.
So regarding today's topic, this is a simple yet so often forgotten tool to utilize when we're feeling overwhelmed. Many people struggle to achieve their deadlines and their tasks, but we often hear them say, I just don't have time, or I'm too busy, or 24 hours is not enough for me, right? So it seems like being overworked is a huge trend for today's people. Avra, for you, what do you think organizing and planning skills is that? What do you define that as?
Yuka, I think it's the ability to manage self and or others and resources, including your time. That's so important. Surrounding about your circumstances and reach specific goals. Organizational skills are the ability that let you stay focused on a certain and difficult task, maybe. And you use your time, your energy, your strength, your mental capacity, and especially your physical capacity. Even if you're sitting in front of a computer, you're still using physical capacity. It sometimes can be very draining. So it's in order to use these tools effectively and efficiently in order to achieve a desired outcome. That's what I think planning is all about.
I like that you mentioned that we have to make use of all these elements effectively as well as efficiently. Because if you don't use them, then basically it doesn't help you to achieve your outcome. So I think the importance of organizing and planning, like what you have defined, Avra, is that it helps us to get the desired outcome of our work being done accurately and to avoid costly mistakes. Also, if you organize and you plan ahead, it helps you to be more productive and be more efficient, like you mentioned. So being well organized, which personally I really do love, and developing effective plans can therefore allow you to achieve the important objectives and the goals in your life. And some important things to remember when we're planning is that it actually involves the setting of what we mentioned, goals. But these goals are predetermined and accomplished with the help of managerial function. Now, when we talk about managerial functions, what are these functions that we're talking about? If you're a manager, you need to organize. You need to know how to staff your people, learn where to put them. You need to learn how to direct them. You need to learn how and when to control them, right? Or to not control them. So I think planning wisely provides the standards against which you can do all these things, but also how much can you do these things effectively with a metric that could be accurately measured.
Yeah, and I think, this is going to sound really strange, but you have to identify the work. This is really important. I think this is an obvious first step, which so many people don't get. Because if you don't identify what you're actually trying to do, you might as well not even start. So it's obvious. The first step in process of organizing is to clarify and actually decide on the work that's done by the organization. What is it that you're going to do? And then prioritize that work. What is the most urgent and most important thing to do? So break it up into bite-sized pieces. When we are planning and organizing, it is very important. First of all, identify the whole, and then break it up into bite-sized pieces. Otherwise, it becomes overwhelming.
That's right. I think that definitely helps to put it into baby steps for everyone to achieve more easily too. So after you prioritize all the work and know what is the most urgent one, then you collectively group what is the same kind of task so that it's easier for you to gain the momentum and to complete them, at one go. Then, of course, you need to establish your hierarchy, which is to identify the order of command, like which one exactly is going to go first and how are you going to command it? Like, is it going to be above is task one is going to be above task two? Is task two going to be above task three?
Yes, but you know what? this is also ties in with delegation and authority, because if you make those accountable and you make people into a way that they know that they're responsible, and finding and ascertaining the best way to share out that workload to the most capable person is not always an easy job. How many times have you heard somebody say, if I don't do this myself, it doesn't get done properly? It's
Guilty.
yeah. And that for me, in ways, I understand where that term is coming from, but it's very ego driven. It's also identifying what is the standard that is required. That's very important in this, because your standards may not be what your staff standards are. You have to lead them. You have to explain to them, this is what is expected. So it's really important here to set out the sequence of events and coordination of the resources. Who's going to do what? So you can now, if you can continue to carry on and define the critical factors for success.
That's right. So after you know what exactly are the tasks you need to do and how you're going to prioritize them and who you're going to find to do this task, I think the important thing for any goal is to measure, is it successful? Has it worked? Has my prioritization worked? Is this project like effective in the end? So you have to define what are the important criteria for you to say, this has made this project successful. So know your factors that can define. Then the second thing is you need to focus on the subtask. I know there are a lot of things sometimes that it goes around our mind, like, okay, in one day we got to have like 10 different tasks that's completed. Now, which one of these are actually main tasks and which of these are subtasks that falls under each one of these main tasks? You need to know how to categorize them accordingly. So actually the things that you need to do to plan ahead, there's quite a bit to make sure that it's successful. But one important thing that I would definitely encourage, Avra, if you plan and if I plan, I think one of the things that we always definitely advocate for is to always anticipate the best case and the worst case scenario. Basically, whoever is in charge of the task, you need to know what is the worst that will happen if this task doesn't fall through. What is the best that will happen if this task is completed? So there is consequential awareness of the effects of it. And therefore, people will step up to make sure the task is done. And each task owner would then definitely know, okay, I'm going to have this process and this specification in order to make sure the task is fulfilled. This gives them the ownership too.
Yes, and I also think, Yuka, when you're mentioning there about doing a situation where you're breaking it down to find out worst case scenario and best case scenario, this is not a negative implication at all. I think it is, if X, Y, Z is not going to fall into place, how do we manage it is also a good step to follow on from that, because you don't just want to look at what is the worst thing that could happen. You want to know, how would you manage that?
That's right. Preparation.
Yeah. And are you preempting something that isn't there, that could not happen? Are you making assumptions, or is this a fact that, for example, I can give you an example about machinery. We're in a bottle factory and the little cap has to go on the top of the bottle. What happens if that machine breaks down for 23 seconds? How is that going to change our productivity time overall? What can we do are we going to get a generator for backup if we have power outage? So that is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying look at the bad things. I'm not saying look at the worst case scenario or making assumptions that might not be there. I'm looking at realistic areas that could be an issue.
Definitely some backup preparation to make sure that in case the task doesn't happen through, what are you going to do to respond to that situation? That's going to make you more equipped and more prepared for situations as such.
Exactly. And I mean, we do have a situation where things happen where we're not prepared for, we might not know about. So we have to just have a plan B should we have to reinforce help or support structures. So a good way to do that is to have a brain brainstorming session, and I love brainstorming sessions because it's creative and it is productive, and it's important for everybody to listen to everybody. Let everybody have their input. You might have a perspective that someone doesn't see, and someone else might have that in reverse as well that you might not have thought about. So you use a good visual. I love visual. I've loved playing with, draw, write, make pictures, whatever, to really ignite a form of creative thinking. And then you can use your project management, like if you need to hire backup or if you need extra software, whatever you need to make this enhanced and a better session in this brainstorming.
Yeah, definitely. Having more ideas, it's always good. Being able to see your ideas is good. Then after that, you go to how do you decide on all these ideas? How do you decide to create a system that supports what you need to do and supports the whole structure of what you have planned to come through? Now, you want to make sure that your decision-making system, this machine, is working correctly, right? You want to make sure that you look out for errors that might possibly happen, or that has happened that you do not want to repeat, so that we can learn from that too.
Very important, so important. And the key to all this planning, time management.
Big one.
Okay, so this is really vital. That time management has to be realistic, and so do the schedules. And this is not just from the person doing the work. This is coming from above. This is a chain reaction. It's a domino effect. If your company or management is expecting you to do things in a time frame that is not realistic, it's going to cause huge amounts of stress, overtime, and burnout. So the best way to manage this, in my opinion, is a process of elimination. Take away what's not working. Start assessing what it is that's important, and remember, you can only do one task at a time.
That's a lot of, a lot of people mention that women can multitask better than guys. Avra, what do you think about that, since you mentioned one task at a time?
And you see me shaking my head. This is a case of patting your stomach and rubbing your head at the same time. It is something that I think this is where a lot of people fall short, and this is where we end up with burnout.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do think that they could multitask and multi-focus and still generate the same amount of productivity at the same time, and that's always an understatement. It's not realistic. Technically, if you're doing multiple tasks at one time, you won't be able to give your full attention to each one of them. So like what you mentioned, eliminating and focusing on what is the more crucial one at that point of time is crucial. Yeah, it's important. So speaking of elimination, I like the idea that you mentioned about brainstorming, right? So brainstorming meetings about thinking about ideas, especially when when you're coming to year end or if you're at the year start, you always have a vision, right, for the next year, for the new year itself. A lot of ideas, and you need to choose which one matters. Avra, how often do you do such brainstorming meetings and vision boards?
Regularly. I would say once every 2 weeks.
Once every 2 weeks, that's very regular. A lot of review going on over there. So share with us some tips about, organizing and planning via vision boards and brainstorming meetings. Like, what are the categories that you use?
Yeah, well, I think one of the first things that is we've covered quite a lot of categories as we've been discussing. And I think what's important in your vision boarding is what can be brought to the table? What are you seeing that's not working? So one of the categories I use in brainstorming is reflection. And that's why I do it twice a month, because what am I doing that's not working? What am I doing that can be improved? What am I doing that can change? What can I do that's going to offer and serve me better? What's going to serve the company better? What's going to serve my house better? What's going to serve my family better? It doesn't matter where this is. It always applies. So you should even be getting together with your family once every 2 weeks and saying, let's have a family meeting. And South Africans would laugh at that, because whenever our president does a speech, we call it a family meeting. So what is important is to then identify, which our president doesn't always do, which identify what is not working and what we can do. And that's why I think brainstorming is so important every 2 weeks, because it's almost like taking a reflective look at what's happening.
Yeah, it's like reviewing and then seeing how far you have gone, and also how much you can get to the next stage to bring yourself to a higher level.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
So I think we've covered pretty well the basic priorities that we need to do for this kind of organizing and planning. So what if we decided to first divide up different kinds of organized and planning skills into a more physical and visual planning, because you enjoy my idea about the visual boards, and the discussions around brainstorming and vision boards are so important. And then we could divide this up into 4 categories. Now, there's a lady by the name of Cass Orison, and she is developed a philosophy called Clutterbug. And I love working with these examples and analogies. So this really works for me. And it's called Clutterbug, and it is insects offering a beautiful place of understanding, because insects, as you know, mainly work in colonies. So they work in groups, they work together. And a lot of our everyday life, we need to do that. So the principles of visual and physical organizing that work are quite interesting as well, because I don't think we take for granted that our area that we're working in needs to be organized in order for us to be organized. So when we make open storage beautiful, it looks good to be in that kind of environment. And if we keep things what I call findable, because then you've got order and you've got calm. And if you group things by task, keep the same tasks in the same files, put them in the same boxes, put them in the same in tray, out tray, whether it's on your computer or whether it's on your desk, it's still visual, it's still there. You know, I had a habit of not always labeling. And then when I get to filing on my computer, I don't know what that was. So I've had to train myself to label everything, give it a name, so that when you're filing, you know where to put it. You can also, what I call, subdivide and conquer. And subdivide and conquer is what I was talking about earlier. And that's breaking things down into smaller chunks, making divisions in work. You can also remember that this is a very interesting observation. Go vertical. Do you know that it's better to view things that your eye naturally runs from the top to the bottom? So if you're doing any column work, or you're doing any projections where you are setting out, always go vertical. It's an interesting concept that you run from top to bottom naturally with your eye. You also have to choose the right container for the job. Your storage is so important. And if you have physically storing heavy items down low, and it's easier to navigate them. If things at the heavier things at the bottom and the lighter things at the top, it makes it a lot easier. How about color coding? This is brilliant.
I love that.
That gives you so much easier identification. So I'm going to do the first insect that falls into all these categories. And these categories are the type of women, men, and work associates who fall into different categories. You remember I spoke about 4 categories. So the first category are my ladybugs, and that's male or female ladybugs. And they are beautiful on the outside, yet they struggle not to be messy on the inside. They are stressed out by surface clutter. They tend to have junk drawers to keep the mess hidden away. You know, we all need a junk drawer, a messy space. They struggle to find time to even maintain daily organizing, and their systems require so much time and effort. So you can see the overwhelm that happens with the ladybug kind of person. So the tip that I can offer here is to have pretty baskets and containers, because ladybugs love beautiful flowers. They love to sit on beautiful places. Okay, so make your environment pleasing and beautiful. Use many containers that can help your home look pretty, or your office space look attractive. Make it clutter free. Get rid of the junk. Decluttering is both physically and emotionally, spiritually and mentally very, very good for you. So every week, maybe clear off your desk, clear off your computer, make things in order, and get easy access to your items. Like I just said to you earlier, I wasn't labeling all my documents. So if I don't label my documents, I don't know where to file them, because I've got to open them first to move them and then give them a name. So it's important. Also, you must have a schedule of time so that you can be organized if you're a ladybug, so that you can help make a priority and much easier to accomplish your tasks. So Yuko, let's hand over to you for the next insect.
Well, the next insect that is coming up is a very visual one. I'm talking about the bees, our honeybees right there. The bees are very visual insects. They love to see their unfinished work and typically have several projects going on. They're like busy bees. That's why I call them busy bees, because there's so many things happening at the same time, simultaneously. So they often leave this project out, believing that they will come back to finish them someday. They really like to hold on to stuff and also think that everything could be a just in case. Everything could have a future benefit. So open shelving with clear containers where everything could be seen that is incomplete is typically the best option for bees. So a tip for organizing for bees, people who are bees, are having all these projects in project boxes. That way you could have all your projects all together, but they're out of the way. So you would know that everything is regarding the project is in that one box itself. Now, another great option that you want to have, since you're visual, is having a pegboard. So with pegboards, you can also visually see like your tools and your items and whatever that you need. But you can also have more available workspace by putting everything on that one pegboard and having less clutter going around. Now, also, of course, knowing yourself, being someone that's a bit more like a busy bee, try to not have more than 3 projects going on at one time, because that's really how much you can manage at one time. You love project, we know that, okay, bees, but keeping the amount of current projects down to 3 will really help you keep your space clean, because you can't fill your whole room with project boxes.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so Yuko, what about crickets? They are amazing.
Yes, exactly. Crickets are, they're always making that noise that we hear.
Absolutely. So they are truly, what crickets fall under? Perfectionists. Okay. Unfortunately, they often don't have time to perfectly organize. So sometimes they end up not organizing at all. And they prefer minimum clutter, and they love micromanaging and organizing everything. They prefer having an organizational style that is very meticulous, and hidden crickets prefer visual simplicity on the outside. So what's the tip for the cricket? Embrace good enough organizing. Do you understand that? It doesn't have to be absolutely 100% overly done till perfection is not even perfection anymore. It just has to be organized and good enough. So crickets can get more accomplished if they loosen their need for exact perfection. Setting a timer maybe while organizing can help crickets stay focused on a task that is at hand and not overdo their organizing. We can over-organize too, which causes problems. So being a labeler can be your best friend. Label everything, your boxes, your containers, your files, your folders, everything else, to help you put things away properly. So when you have computer files, they'll be named.
Oh, I'm guilty as such. I actually do name my computer files in order. So honestly, I think we have a little bit of cricket, a little bee. Sometimes some of us identify with more into one insect or another. And one of the insects, the last insect that we're going to talk about here is the butterflies, right? Butterflies, beautiful creatures. They're incredibly visual too, which is not a surprise considering the aesthetic outlook. Now, if things are out of sight, to butterflies, it is out of mind, and it might as well not exist, right? They love to have quick and easy access to the things that they love the most. They're definitely not detail oriented in organizing, and they fear forgetting what they actually have. So, a tip is that butterflies, you might want to make use of this powerful tool that we call hooks. That's right, HOOK, hook. Have hooks everywhere. Help to put it out for yourself so that you can get easy access to what you want to get.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to have closets, try not to have doors so that it's an open area and you can also see what is inside. If it's not inside, you probably forget it. Draw out your space beforehand and get a clear vision of what your space is for and what you're going to use it for, the purpose for it. This will really encourage you to not get distracted whenever you see something that catches your eye again.
Well, you think now that we've covered all four insects, I think you understand, and you mentioned it when you were talking earlier, that we can be a little bit of each of one of these four. We really can. However, really identify which clutterbug you are and how you can change with these tips to help you. So let's move on now and really look at areas where we can develop skills with better planning and organizing. So one of the biggest ones is communication, and this applies in all venues of life, but particularly in planning and organizing. Being able to communicate your ideas and progress with others in your company or department or at home makes you feel sure everybody is in the loop. They're notified and of recent changes. They know about updates. How often did you hear, but nobody told me. Nobody told me that that meeting was cancelled. Well, you need to get on board. You need to have an updated, relevant situation where whatever you're doing in that job, you know exactly what's happening by good communication. And those skills include both sharing and receiving information. You also need to communicate when you're not coping with something, when things are not going the way they were planned, so that you can make the relevant changes. This is to help you prioritize, delegate, and respond to requests or urgent issues too. Then we move on to strategic planning. Thinking strategically is probably one of the most valued qualities. It allows you to analyze a situation, predict if its possible outcomes are good, and plan your work accordingly to increase the chances of success and to avoid making mistakes and achieving the goals that you set yourself. This is very important. Thinking ahead can also help you decide how you would plan your time resources better.
Love it, love it. I love planning, I love thinking, and then after that, I love executing with the details itself too. So people with great attention to detail, which is one of the important skills that we need to also learn how to develop, they're really focused, they're mindful, and they're very thorough with their execution. They understand that little things, the little details can impact a situation or a project. That's why being able to notice the details in it is an integral part of being organized and staying on top of all your duties and deadlines. Make sure you take note of little things. Now, another factor that we want to also make sure we can develop to help us to stay organized and to plan well is self-motivation. Self-motivation is really valuable because one doesn't need external factors to stay motivated or take initiative. Once you have the motivation to stay organized, that is already the first step to having the most important task under your control. To keep your momentum, your momentum and your motivation up, you may want to think about how being organized can influence also your personal goals.
Yes, because we don't always have to rely on others to tell us how good we are. If we're well planned, we will see this, and that is also self-motivation. So another way we can also help ourselves to improve our organizational skills is my favorite, making lists. It's one of the most effective ways to organize your projects and tasks. On top of that, ticking things off on a list is like a process of accomplishment so that you can track and visually see your progress, which often improves with work satisfaction. So you feel better because you're doing things and you're getting them done. Thanks to always having a to-do list by your side, you may never find yourself thinking about what is it that I haven't done? What have I forgotten? And feeling that your work is totally pointless because it's just going on and on and on instead of finding your accomplishments. So a list gives you your work a structure that you need to stay organized.
Well, other than the list to help yourself to stay organized, sometimes we may get off the track and we don't get organized. So don't be afraid to ask for help, right? Not knowing how to perform a task can be really paralyzing. It could result in getting you behind your schedule. So if you need help, or if you want your coworker, your employer to give you some assistance at work, don't be afraid to ask for help. Now, after you stay organized, do make sure that you also reward yourself. So if you find some kind of reward systems motivating, some of us like accountability, some of us like rewards at the end. Now, you may want to stick to this model of reward system while developing and improving your organization skills. For example, if you have decided to, plan, and then you have taken a day off to basically plan and review, after that, do some fun things. Go hike, go read a book, go do whatever that relaxes you and prepare for your next challenge.
But Yuka, this is not always just about you rewarding yourself. It's also if you are a manager and you are running a company, you need to run incentives. You need to also offer some exciting outings and fun days, team building days. These are all parts of rewards and a way of saying to your staff, thank you, you're doing a good job.
That is so true. Because sometimes we actually assume that they're supposed to be organized, but actually we don't give the incentive. That really helps.
Yeah, because it's keeping up the morale and the good spirit and the good company awareness of some humane things, that you're caring about each other. It brings your staff together as well. Because when they're doing fun things that you're organizing for them, then it brings them together too and makes them feel rewarded. So what is the conclusion today for our message? I would say, remember that fear of perfection can stunt productivity. I love that line. Okay. So the fear of not having a perfect result is something that people have to deal with. It can lead to procrastination, which is one of the things that stay in the way of being organized. So if you deal with the issue from time to time and remember that you can't always be perfect, and remember that getting things done quickly and efficiently and effectively may not necessarily be the fact that it's not perfect, and not being afraid of maybe making those small mistakes and allowing you to stay focused and motivated. That is our message today for all organizational planning.
Wonderful. Make sure you don't get afraid of perfection, and you don't strive too hard for that too. Because once you reach perfection, I don't know what is after that. All right. Thanks all for joining us for today. Don't forget to subscribe and also check out the description below to receive the message for the day.
Well, that's a wrap for today. I'm signing off till next time and wishing you lots of love and light and a wonderful festive season. Stay safe, people.
Peace out.